We are at Punta della Dogana just to see a very interesting exhibition. Danvo was the artist and the curator, together with Caroline Bourgeois. So a very strange exhibition full of a lot of artists, ancient artists of 15th century till nowadays. The youngest is 26 years old. And we start with this big room, few artists and few works. Title, Slip of the Tongues. Why?
Well, Slip of the Tongue is with a big meaning, so it speaks about what we say without purpose, or what we know without knowing we know, and what is heavy on our shoulders without knowing. So this is a red thing for the whole show. It's to speak about a different way to look at history, and it starts with a painting by Bellini, which is a cut painting, and how that happened when Napoleon arrived in Venice, and how disturbance or dramatic events can still create something quite beautiful. And this is all the question of being in those contradictions, how disaster, you had the plague, so you will see one room when you see a statue in the building which represents the fight against the plague, how fight in a way is the base of any life. There is something very existential, and in that first room you have some elements of all that, which is how changing, being involved, being crazy might be the only way to live a proper life.
Another very important thing regarding Danvo. Danvo was a refugee. He escaped from the war in Vietnam, and this marked his life. So he deals a lot with violence, with the effect of history and his own life or life of artists that are friends or he knows. So which is inside this exhibition part of this?
Well, the work of Jan is to start with the individual life have elements of a common life. So the fact, speaking about the Vietnam War, is not to speak about him, it's to speak about what was the consequences of all that, including the colonialist question, and how those events, if I may speak this way, can change all of us. So he really always said that his life is not for his life, it's for what that's in common with other people. And that's also the thread of the show in general. There is some people which, for example, the younger one called Cameron Rowland, he speaks about different economies. This is because he's been poor, of course, but this is because others are poor. This is something which is not to be self-centered, but to see what we share, which determines our life. And the Vietnam War determined us too. It's not just the people in Vietnam.
And not only Vietnam, of course, but all the wars that are around us nowadays. So this is not only contemporary, but really something that touches everybody. And which is the connection in between the old works of art, for example, the one coming from the academia, coming from a lot of museums, Bellini, and not only Bellini?
Well, this is something like the very important for the show. It's a witness of the war and how museums started. It's also by cutting things from the past. So even the idea of the work of art is not so clear because sometimes it's cuts from something existing. There is two big loans with the Academia, the Bellini, but also with the Fondazione Cini, which are cutouts from the Bibles in different ways of cutting, so to become commodities. There's something which is really quite radical on the whole show about the idea of a work of art as a commodity or as to make it spectacular. So it's a fight against the quick image. And the whole show, in a way, is a fight against the quick image that we have on TV or on anything. Like if you have an image of a war, doesn't mean you understand the war. If you see, for example, one of Jan's work with the tapestry upstairs, you see that the people in Vietnam start to make helicopter on the tapestry. This is the change of the war, and you understand more deeply the war meaning and how the effect could be. And maybe sometimes today we are in the spectacle and everyone think, it makes you think, might make you not think. So this is an exhibition for space for each of us. And this is a bit the things, that's why there's a play with in the display that you go to see. Sometimes there's big work, sometimes there's very small ones. So it's like the thinking method also. That's maybe you have to see details to understand things which are bigger. And same thing with the wall. That's why sometimes there's one image who can make you understand everything, not a movie. All that different kind of levels.
And this is a characteristic of even the work of art Jan Vo explained. Just hidden something and explaining something, but you have to discover it.
Yeah, and that it goes, and everything goes with the thinking, not just the looking, to make it short.
Last question, what we can find in the cube in Dogana?
Very important artist called Nancy Sparrow, which was important in Jan's parcours because she made a very big statement against the Vietnam War in America. She's been quite forbidden for that, and he started to look at her work. She was a very feminist and engaged person, living with Leonie Garlob, and this is the beginning of her work. It's called the Codex Artaud. It's the first time that there as much codex put together, even in her lifetime. And she started to bring back voice, or asking what we can speak about, starting from Artaud. Artaud was speaking, but he's been sent to the psychiatric hospital, so he was forbidden to speak in a way. And the woman, as well as the people against the Vietnam War, were forbidden to speak in the early 70s. It was a huge fight, and this is the beginning of her identity and of her way of working. As she started to make those kind of collages and fragility just on paper, she stopped painting at that time, so not use the same way of working than the man's role to make it quick, and mixing with ancient history. You see things from Egyptian time, so it gives you a perspective that makes you think in a deeper way of all what is possible to say, to think, or not. And the sentences of Artaud are just fantastic.
So we can say that this exhibition is only for thinking about not only art, but life that is hidden inside the works of art that we have to discover.
Well, I hope there's also things that you understand when you see it. Like, this is not just hidden things. There's some, again, different size and different, there's some big works and small works. I hope that there is something that you can get even if you, but I think it works also with the memory.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.